नमस्कार, मैं तुषार सेठी स्वागत करता हूं आप सभी का एक बार फिर मेरे YouTube चैनल पे। इंटरनेशनल स्कूल ऑफ कृष्ण कॉन्शियसनेस यानी इस्कॉन का नाम आप सभी ने सुना ही होगा। आज इस्कॉन के प्रभु जी हमारे साथ जुड़े हैं। चलिए उनसे उनके बारे में और इस्कॉन के बारे में बात करते हैं। हरे कृष्ण प्रभु जी, हाउ आर यू?
Hi Krishna, how are you?
आई एम फाइन, हाउ आर यू?
Yeah, doing okay.
प्लीज टेल अस अबाउट योरसेल्फ।
Okay. Yeah, I'm a full-time brahmachari and my service is doing Harinam Sankirtan, chanting and dancing in the streets all over the world. I've been doing that for 10 years every day now. And I joined in Melbourne, Australia. So that's actually where I was born. I grew up there, and I grew up as your typical Australian guy, you could say, um, doing everything Australians do, eating meat, drinking beer, chasing girls, the very simple things. But yeah, it didn't really work out for me. It doesn't work out for anyone actually, but I was lucky to figure it out. And then actually my father started practicing Krishna consciousness 6 years before I did. And I always saw he was always peaceful and he had a lot of knowledge. So I respected that. And when I tried to, do my thing in the material world, um, yeah, it just ends in depression really. So at that point, I asked my father because he was always reading the Bhagavad Gita, can I read it? And he goes, yeah, sure. And then when I started reading it, I was getting 7 pages into the introduction, and then I closed it shut. So why I closed it shut was because Srila Prabhupada somehow, for me, it felt like he was just slapping me and saying, you're doing everything wrong. You're doing everything wrong. I was like, oh. So I couldn't read it after that. My girlfriend at the time, she's saying, well, maybe you should read the whole thing. I didn't really take up that advice until like a year later when we broke up, and then there was like so much depression. And then I asked my parents again, can I read Bhagavad Gita? And they gave me Science of Self-Realization instead. And that convinced me, even though I felt those slaps from Prabhupada. I remember what my girlfriend said, that you should read the whole thing. So I just continued reading, and there was a light at the end of the tunnel, you could say, even though this material world and everything that it's presented and it doesn't work and you can't enjoy in this world. And anyone who tries to is selfish and self-centered, then yeah, at least there's a way to be selfless and Krishna-centered, which is by engaging in bhakti yoga and Krishna consciousness. And yeah, pretty much halfway, 6 months later after that book, I joined the temple. That was 15 years ago.
So it's
I
been
spent 4 years
15
in the
years.
temple. Yeah. So
What
I spent
changes have
about,
you seen? What changes have you seen in yourself after joining ISKCON?
yeah, that's cool because yeah, I was a big meat eater. I have to admit, I liked it. But after reading that book, I knew it was the wrong thing. I was convinced. After this conversation with the French cardinal, it's a very famous conversation. And so I was convinced it was the wrong thing to do. But even if you have knowledge that it's the wrong thing to do, still, you still have taste for it. So until I started associating with devotees and taking lots of prasadam, then it didn't feel like I gave meat out, but meat gave me out. It just naturally you don't feel like it anymore. And when I was just before becoming a devotee or joining ISKCON, I was a bartender, working with alcohol and serving alcohol. So you would think, how am I going to get out of that mess? But no, uh, very easy. The you could say the intoxication from prasadam and dancing and chanting and kirtan was so much more higher. So you
Yes.
didn't really need anymore. And that's why most people drink alcohol. They try and use it to loosen up so they can have a better time to party and be more approachable to people. But actually has the opposite effect. We're just in illusion during that time. So I felt like there's no need for it anymore. Let alone yeah, and then giving up illicit sex, or like, I guess what's the main problem for young men these days is addiction to pornography and stuff like that. So that wasn't needed anymore, you're busy and serving Krishna, and we understood that, like from reading those books, he understood that, to give into the especially to the pushings of the genitals, you just go back down deep into this dark place of ignorance. So no need. And gambling, I never really gambled, but this human form of life is so valuable. And then when we gamble it away for just like worthless, temporary enjoyment of this world, then you're wasting the human form of life. Human form is for self-realization, the realization of God. And, you know, so many lifetimes we've gone through, so many species of life, and finally we got it. And we throw it away like trash. So I'm not going to gamble that way anymore. Transcendental gambling is taking up Krishna consciousness, because the whole world is going after illusion, and you're going the other direction. So it is also a risk, a gamble, but we got the Krishna card.
I have heard about the word Krishna consciousness. So, what is that?
Krishna consciousness is the activity of falling in love with Krishna. I guess you have it in Hindi or in Sanskrit, Krishna Bhavanamrita, that it's the bhav of that nectar of connecting to Krishna. And this is also known as bhakti yoga. Yoga meaning to connect, and bhakti through devotional service. So the essence of the soul is to always serve. Doesn't matter what body it's in. The parents serve the kids serve the parents. The boss, he tries to provide for employees, the employees serve back. Even if there's a president or a prime minister, he may be in charge, but still he has to serve his country. But someone may say, I don't serve anyone, I'm on my own. Like some homeless guy in the street. He doesn't want to associate with anyone. He doesn't want to serve. So he decides to serve his belly. When it gets, it tells you it's time to put something in. So we always have to serve. Where to perfect that serving, the service essence of the self, the soul has an essence. And this is the meaning of Dharma. We've heard this Sanatan Dharma, the eternal essence. So Dharma doesn't mean religion. Dharma means the essence of something. So like the Dharma of water is that it's wet. The
Way of
Dharma
life.
of, yes, the Dharma of fire is it's that it's hot. The Dharma of sugar is sweet. You take these things you take sweetness out of sugar, it's no longer sugar anymore. So what is the essence of the soul is that it has to serve, but we don't know where to serve. Krishna consciousness perfects that essence by serving the root of all of our existence, Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's the Supreme Soul, and we all have a connection with him. And then in that service, we experience a greater fulfillment and nourishment beyond our own capacity. So for example, just like you have a tree, and then you try and water each leaf and branch and twig, and it's not going to work. But if you water the roots of the tree, then all the leaves, the twigs, the branches, the parts and parcels of the tree get full nourishment beyond their own capacity. So not only do you fulfill yourself and you're overflowing with happiness, but you can, by engaging in Krishna's service, everyone, all living entities benefit, actually.
So there are so many things in this world that give pleasure to us. So why should we leave all these things and practice Krishna consciousness?
The things of this world is not the problem. It's how you use it. For example, the knife in the hands of a surgeon can save a life. The same knife in the hands of a madman can end a life. So it's not the knife that's the problem, it's how it's being used. So the things of this world, or material things, the problem is we're using it to try and give pleasure to the pushings of the senses of this body. That is the problem. But if we utilize the same things and the same senses in giving pleasure to Krishna senses, and then we finally experience true happiness, which comes from an eternal love, loving connection with Krishna. That's what emanates from such activities. And I could talk about it, but one has to experience it. So that's why the easiest way to utilize things is offer it to Krishna. So, for example, if you have a house, a car, a computer, I'm talking on an iPad now. You may say, well, you're a monk, you're not supposed to have one. But no, I will use everything in Krishna's service because it was never mine in the first place. So what is there to give up? The example is given as just like you went in front of the Bank of India, some branch there, and you say, I renounce all the money in here. I give it up. You never owned it in the first place. So what is there to give up? So all these things, they were never ours. It's just the illusion. We think it's ours, so it should be for my enjoyment. No, it was given to us by Krishna and it belongs to Krishna. And when we use it for his service, then we're no longer a thief trying to use it for ourselves. We're actually using it for the purpose of the owner. And then we're no longer implicated in bad karma, but we're implicated in the transcendental pastimes of Krishna, actually. You're full of
At
bliss.
what time do you wake up?
I try and get up before 4, but sometimes we have late nights. There's a long Harinam, late night Harinam, or a program. So I may get up later, maybe 5, 6,
Is there
7.
any significance of waking up at 4?
Yeah, it's just easier to do a meditation. So we do meditation. It's called japa meditation. You know, maybe your grandparents were doing this, or great grandparents, with the beads, and you chant the Maha Mantra on the beads. So the easiest time to do that meditation is before the sun gets up, because everything's quiet. There's nothing really to do. There's no appointments. There's no meetings. The birds aren't even awake at that time. So when we chant the mantra at that time, then it's very powerful. And when you do that in the morning, then when you go out about your day, when you're going to the office, or you're going to study, or any other thing that the material world will throw at you, you always focus. You know, you're not being thrown here and there. You know, and you're highly affected. So in that way, when we wake up early is good. And there's the saying, you know, early to bed, early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise.
So it is said that if we have control over our senses, we have control over our life. How to control senses?
So the senses are actually a part and parcel of Krishna's senses, who's known as Rishikesh, which means master of the senses. So actually, our senses are always the property or control of Krishna. Due to our foolish misuse of our independence, minute independence, then we want to use the senses in the wrong way. The easiest way to control the senses is by the mercy of Krishna. So sometimes we call mercy prasad, right? We all love prasadam. And in Krishna consciousness, there's so many senses: sight, hearing, touch, taste, smell. And in the Nectar of Instruction by Rupa Goswami, it says, Vacha Vegam, Mansakroda Vegam, Jiva Vegam, Dharapasta Vegam. So there's the pushings of the tongue, the belly, and the genitals. If you see, they're in a straight line. If one eats too much, then there's pushing in the belly onto the genitals, and then one has stronger sexual desire. So if we use the tongue to chant the holy name and then take prasadam, then everything else is purified. It stops at the tongue. And then, there's no longer misuse of the body and the senses. So that's the best way to control the senses and have control of our life. In the beginning, obviously, to always chant the Maha Mantra, engage in kirtan, dancing in kirtan. The energy you sweat it out, and the energy you use playing the drum, and you're just with your devotee friends, you don't feel this sexual desire anymore. And that's the thing that's keeping us in this darkness of the material world. So yes, lots of dancing and chanting and lots of prasadam. These things will always save us no matter what happens.
Okay. So those who want to start their spiritual journey, how can they balance between their spiritual life and material life, like studying and meditating at the same time?
Yeah. So the best balance you could do is to always put Krishna first. So say you have some assignment, and with that assignment, you're wondering how you're going to do it. Say, for example, you start chanting, I guess, 4 rounds every day. Try not to put anything before finishing those 4 rounds. Put that first. You wake up, that's the first thing you do. And then maybe while doing the assignment, you have some light kirtan in the background. And then also, like, while you're doing the assignment, have some prasadam on the side, if you need a break. So there needs to be like, you need to surround yourself by Krishna. Or the posters on the wall, have some Krishna posters on the wall. Some of Ram and Hanuman, because when we see our small little struggles in life, comparing them to the struggles that Krishna's devotees face, it's very small. So we get even more inspiration from them. So these are the things that we could do, actually. We somehow surround ourselves by Krishna conscious substances like prasadam, kirtan, lectures, the books, and making sure that nothing goes before our finishing of how many rounds we promised to do every day. I think that's important.
So I have heard about the 16 round of chanting. Why should we chant 16 rounds? Why not 15 or 17?
Yeah, actually, you can chant 17.
No, it's
So
specifically 16.
yeah. So when one becomes serious about Krishna consciousness, they do what's called diksha or initiation. They take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master who is in the disciplic succession, the parampara, leading up to Lord Shri Krishna himself. So when one takes initiation, they make vows that whatever the spiritual master instructs, they will follow. They'll avoid the 4 sinful activities. It's known as the 4 regulative principles of freedom. So they'll promise to never eat meat again, including fish and eggs, to never take any intoxication, including tea and coffee, to not engage in any illicit sex ever again, and to never gamble. So these 4 promises they've made. And they make the promise to every day chant a minimum of 16 rounds of Hare Krishna Maha Mantra on japa beats. The history of how this 16 came up was that when the founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada came, he first told his disciples, okay, so now you will chant 64 rounds. And they were shocked, like, no, Prabhupada, we can't do this. We have so much service, and how are we gonna do it? He dropped it down, 32. Still devotees were like, oh gosh, no. And he said 16, that's it. So that was the implement by the pure devotee. So one may say, well, Srila Prabhupada's guru, he said that if one doesn't chant 64 rounds, then they're considered fallen. So what, did Srila Prabhupada change things or make it cheap? No, he did not make it cheap. But the pure devotee has Krishna. And if the pure devotee gives a promise, for example, Prabhupada promise, if one follows the 4 regulated principles and chants 16 rounds every day, at the end of life, they go back to Godhead. I guarantee it, I guarantee it, I guarantee it. Prabhupada gives the example just like when Hiranyakashipu got the benedictions from Lord Brahma. So he gave all the benedictions. You will not die on the land, in the sky. You will not die in inside or outside, in the day or the night, by no weapon, nothing living or dead, and by no animal, demigod, or human being. So many benedictions. So it's like he was immortal. Lord Nishingadev came, killed Hiranyakashipu, but kept the word of his pure devotee, Lord Brahma, by placing Hiranyakashipu on his lap instead of the ground or in the sky. He was killed in the dust, not the day of the night. He was killed in the, it's like a balcony, so it's neither inside or outside. He was killed not by anything living or dead. So he's killed by the nails, which are not living or dead. He was not killed by any demigod, human, or animals, like a half man, half lion. So Krishna is amazing like that. Whatever the circumstance, he always fulfills the desire of the pure devotee. So Prabhupada did that for us. He brought it down. He brought the mercy even further, so we can serve Krishna and be accepted by Krishna. So 16 rounds it's and those who are already chanting 16 rounds, even though you may not chant good 16, there is a special protection from Srila Prabhupada when we try to fulfill 16 no matter what. So we should always stick to the 16 and just go higher. And if we're not there yet, say we're doing 4 or 8, and then we should slowly increase, but not go back down. Yeah.
Okay, anything that you want to convey to our young generation?
The young generation. Oh gosh. I don't know. I'm getting old now. I'm 35. But I act like I'm young, so.
Like 20s or those who are in teen.
Okay. Oh gosh. Maybe we can discuss, Peru, because you can fill me in what they're into, because I don't actually know what they're into. I know what I was into when I was 20, into hip hop and stuff, and break dancing, but I don't know what the youth of Delhi are into. Don't be tricked by what's on the media. Don't be tricked. And the thing is that you want to be cool. I understand. But the best way to be cool is to become pure. The more pure you become, the more you stand out from everyone else who's all impure and conditioned. We're always looking to try and be cool, but the coolest or most auspicious, that's also like coolness, is to become pure. So when we take the path of Krishna consciousness, the people will ridicule us in the beginning. But when you stick to it, and then they'll see how you become like a greater person, and then they'll want to follow you.
So motive should be to become pure.
Yeah, the process of Krishna consciousness, chanting, reading, hearing lectures, um, and especially going on Harinam Sankirtan. That's the coolest party ever. I don't know if you saw what we were doing in Australia. We did a thing called schoolies, where all the high school kids, they finish school and they go to this like surfing town, and there's thousands of them there. And they're just there purely for like drinking, having sex, taking drugs, and then partying, you know. So we come with Harinam party, and there's only like a few of us, like 5 of us, right? So what happens there? We just start, and they just come running and dance with us, right? So I can understand, like, especially when, like, in India, and then you would come to the West and you like, you know, portray your religious sentiments in this way of chanting and dancing in the street. You think, oh man, it's cringy, you know, like, man, why would you do that? You know, this is like, it's not cool. No, man, these kids love it, you know, and these are like, they're like 18, 19, 20, you know, so they're like, when everyone thinks something is cool, they're the generation, you know, and they love Hare Krishna. They would dance with us 10 nights in a row for 4 hours, and they come running to us. And then during the day, we were like, because it's all hotels and it's a beach town. So we go to the beach, and then from the hotel rooms, they'll shout out, they go, hey, Hare Krishna, yeah, Hare Krishna. You know, you doing the party tonight? I'm coming, you know. So for them, it's just like this awesome party, you know, which like they get this so much better feeling than any other rave or dance party they've ever been to. So